Hello, everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. Today we will look at the topic of fighting. How many of us have been in a fight? Why do Christians fight with others if we have God's wisdom? Let's look at the root cause of fights. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? Every fight you have ever been in comes down to this root issue, your passions. This word is the idea of sinful pleasure. For example, you want more money at work, but your boss is unwilling to give you a raise. That inner desire creates bitterness in your heart, and eventually you fight your boss because he or she is the one getting in the way of your raise. So the root cause of every fight is frustrated desires. You want something so strongly that you don't care how you treat others to get what you want. Look at how James describes this process. You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You might be thinking, come on, James, murder? That is extreme, isn't it? Where do you think James got this idea? Remember what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5 verses 21 to 22? You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. A person's desire, if left unchecked, can lead to not just fights, but even murder. Why? Because if any person gets in the way of your desire, you will do whatever it takes to get what you want. James adds this, you covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. Murder and coveting are two sides of the same coin because they come from frustrated desires. Sometimes we fight because people get in the way of our desires, but sometimes we fight because people have what we desire. Now, how do we deal with our frustrated desires? Look at what James says. You do not have because you do not ask. Wait a minute, James. You are saying that if we just pray to God, that he will give us whatever we want? Well, look at what James adds. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your passions. James is not saying that we don't receive what we want because we don't ask God. He is saying that we don't receive what we ask for because we ask with wrong motives. Just like a parent would not give money to a child he knows will spend it selfishly, God will not answer our prayers if what we pray for is asked with the selfish motive. So our conflict with people is ultimately a conflict with God. The reason why you fight with others is to satisfy a desire that God will not satisfy. In other words, we fight with people because we asked God for it and he said no. And like a child who won't get candy from his parents, we go out and push another kid to grab their candy. Listen, we have conflict with other people when we aren't willing to accept what God has already given to us. So instead of fighting for our frustrated desires, what should we do? James says that you must submit to God's authority. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. The only logical response to grace is humility. What James will do in James chapter 4, verses 7 through 10, is give a list of commands to illustrate what it looks like to submit to God's authority. Look at James chapter 4, verse 7. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. The word resist means to stand against. Instead of fighting with others because of your selfish desires, you must fight against the devil that is enticing you to yield to your desires. How do we submit to God's authority? Fight the devil, then run to God. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. During a time of battle, there will be one person who will be holding a banner of the king's symbol. The purpose of this banner was to let the soldiers see where to run to during battle for safety. James says that during those times when you are fighting, look up for the banner of God. Run to God and draw near to him. Then James adds that you must cleanse yourself. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. To cleanse yourself is not to simply watch your actions closely, but also to watch your thoughts closely. Instead of having a divided allegiance to God and this world, cleanse yourself so that you can have a single mind that desires God. Fight the devil, run to God, cleanse yourself, then grieve over your sin. Be wretched and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning and your joy to gloom. You know what James is saying? Stop treating your sin lightly. Your dysfunctional relationships are not a small thing to dismiss, but a serious matter to address. You see, until you grieve over your sin, you will never get serious about your sin. And if you don't get serious about your sin, then you won't cleanse yourself from sin. And if you don't cleanse yourself from sin, then you won't run to God. And if you won't run to God, well, you won't be able to fight the devil. And if you don't fight the devil, that you will never humble yourself and submit to God's authority. This is why James summarizes these commands as an expression of humility. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will exalt you. Instead of fighting for our desires, submit yourself to God's authority. Instead of fighting for our desires, James adds that we are to give grace to others. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers. The one who speaks against a brother or judges his brother speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is only one lawgiver and judge, He who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? Picture a courtroom with two people fighting and sitting on different sides of the room. And imagine that the judge's seat is empty. What you are doing when you fight with others is you are sitting in that judge's seat, making a verdict on that person. You are acting like you know if that person is deserving of grace or wrath. But James is saying that you are not qualified to sit on that seat. You are not God, for God alone is able to judge rightly. So instead of sitting on the judge's seat, let Jesus sit on that seat. He will look at the person you are fighting with and say, guilty. And then He will look at you and say, guilty. And then He will say that the penalty for our sin is death. But instead of sentencing us to death, Jesus will get off His seat and pay our penalty of sin with this life. Instead of giving us what we deserve, Jesus will give us grace. And so why do we fight? We fight because of our frustrated desires, and instead of submitting to God's authority, we appoint ourselves as judges. So the way James wants us to deal with others is not to fight them as our enemies, but to love them as our family members. And how does it look to love others, including your enemies, as family members? It means that no matter how much you fight with them, you will always be willing to forgive them. And when your desires try to create more fights, remember the verdict of grace you have received and choose to show that same grace towards others. Thank you to today's sponsor, On Reverence. They offer a free digital worship music app called Maskill. If you want to find out more, I'll leave some links below in the description box. If you missed the last video about God's wisdom, I'll leave a link here for you to watch. And until next time, see you!